I think there are a number of issues actually. I don't think there's just one or two specifics. I think one of the key ones is to ensure that you're focusing on one real benefit. So I think it's very easy when you're developing a food for healthy ageing to try and pack lots of different benefits in for that target audience. I think one of the pivotal things is not to try and do too much. Keep it simple, keep it very directive, and ensure that you're getting one message across. What else do I think? I also think that targeting an ageing population, they've also grown up over the years and they're probably more loyal as an audience. So when looking to position a new brand within their lives, I think it's important to think that actually they're not desperately hunting for new innovations. So it's got to be very relevant and it's got to bring real value to what they're currently using. So they can see a very clear advantage to them actually buying it or trading up or trading down. And it can't be, I don't think it can be inferior. I think it's got to offer an experience over and above, either by being more a premium experience or definitely not compromising on quality in any way, but something that they're feeling they deserve it. It's not about sacrifice when you're reaching a certain point in age. It's more of a case of, I deserve this, there are extra benefits that I'm getting, isn't this great? It's a positive approach rather than one of deficit and sacrifice, which I think is really important. What else? I think that when it comes to actually launching a new brand, I think it's important not to just stay to the current channels. I think the biggest successes moving forward will be the people who are brave, who actually try and embrace the whole opportunity to bring, happiness and prosperity to an ageing community, an ageing population, and not just thinking that you're reliant on just the retail channels. There are new stores being created which are going direct to consumer. There are concepts which are actually being about health villages being created, and I think it just builds the horizons to say, don't take the current parameters as the current status of things and stick to it. Break beyond, because the bigger vision for healthy ageing foods, drinks, new products is only going to be realised if people take that bigger vision for it to become mass market and accepted globally. At the moment it's very easy to have lots of niches, but for it to actually become a global phenomenon in the way that other things have done, it needs to be embraced in a much bigger way, which isn't just by current channels. I think fundamentally when consumers get to a certain age, they start feeling vulnerability. They feel vulnerable, they feel that things are starting to happen, things are starting to change in their bodies or perceptions of other people of them, or things that normally which they could self-correct very easily, these things aren't happening. So these are trigger points which are quite negative that they want to overcome. So I think that it's important for people to paint a positive disposition to actually make people feel vital, to make people feel that they've got what they need and they're not actually in a negative state, they're in a positive state that they can actually control and manage. Overall, the ageing population have been treated very badly, and I think it's time that we sort of readdress that and start looking after them. And it's about the bigger care agenda, both from not just from a product level, but at a hospital, community, societal level. Because we're going to, over 50% of the population will be over 50 by 2030, and that's significant. I think they want to feel, they don't want to feel old. I think it's about feeling part of something, feeling as they felt in their youth, feel that they're not being judged by society, they're not having to pay penalties for getting older. They want to feel alive, they want to feel as good as they did, and they're looking at ways that they can optimise their lives and stay as happy and prosperous for as long as they can. So I think anything that we can do, not just with products, and I think that's where the downfall is. A lot of people are trying to do it just via new products. I think it's about services, I think it's about environment, I think it's a whole attitude that we take to ensuring happier futures basically for an ageing community. Yeah, I think some of the premium categories, so it's been known for a long time that the premium sports cars, a lot of the higher end things are the luxuries that the older population, the ageing part of the population can actually afford to enjoy. So holidays, entertainment, fun times, that's really, really high, and that's people should be spending that money to enjoy lives rather than feel compromised in any way. Ultimately, they don't want to compromise. But a lot of them, depending on different age cohorts, I think there are certain points when pills are the only solution. But I think there are lots of other services and solutions and different ways that brands can engage with these people, and that's what they are ultimately, is real people, to actually just make life easier. If you can make life easier and life happier via services, brands facilitating that with new benefits or ways to monitor, control, make it more personal, make it more enjoyable, better value for money, or they're getting more out of it in terms of other opportunities, that's the way to go. They don't ultimately want to be dependent on pills and living an old age, which is that, in the octarian, the octogens. I think it's much more about really trying to make that as positive as possible, get on that journey, which is where the big role of brands comes in. I think the main ones that come to my mind are, and I talked about that this morning, is that there's a lot in parallel categories where brands in skincare, in brands in toiletries, cosmetics, Olay, L'Oreal, big brands, big global brands, they've done a fantastic job of actually identifying the issues that the ageing consumer is concerned with, but then actually giving a positive benefit from that. So it's not just talking about the problem, it's not just talking about the concern, it's glamorising life and actually making it feel good and better, which is actually something that food hasn't actually managed to do. I think over time, I would say the biggest successes have come from the dairy industry, so the little bottles, the battle of the little bottles. A lot of the little bottles over time, it's only been in the past 10 years that little bottles have moved from being about science. There've been many lessons learned along the way to get to that point of now bottles being everyday mainstream things that fit into your lifestyle rather than it becoming just the science. So I think the bottles have been fantastic. They've got to a very good point, but there are very few other categories in food, and that's part of the challenge, that have managed to crack this whole opportunity. And I think part of that is that food isn't the only part, is only one part of the jigsaw, it's only one part of the solution. There's so many other things in terms of service, in terms of approach, attitude, interaction, that whole arena that is just untapped at the moment. Product design is fundamental. I think that there are some very tangible areas of deterioration which go along very much hand in hand with ageing, with the ageing process. Eyesight changes, muscular, all these different things. And packaging can play a key role in terms of people's dexterity, in terms of how you hold a bottle, how you open a bottle, how you open a jar, in terms of the size of the letters actually on the packaging. These are very critical issues to get right. So you may have a fantastic positioning for the brand, but if those simple things aren't identified and adhered to, or you're doing something which is going to get people to notice you. There's one thing about addressing some of the potential downsides of ageing, which are eyesight deterioration and dexterity, which is one side of it. Also, functional foods at the moment, if we call it that, with lots of different names, but functional foods at the moment really need to get noticed. Part of the challenge is that people are spending money on actually launching them, but they're getting lost because a lot of the categories outside of dairy haven't happened yet. So the packaging has to make that statement to break through and be a first in the way that Little Bottles did, to really give a brand that opportunity to get noticed. And that can extend into, that's not just packaging in terms of something that goes on a shelf in a supermarket. That could be the units in which they're merchandised, that could be the whole experience in a store or anything. It can really extend to be done in the right way rather than just the same way as it's always been done. If you think about, again, the age cohorts and what's been going on in the different eras that different age cohorts, so whether you go baby boomers or whether you go seniors or whichever area you're looking at, age cohort you're looking at, I think if you look at what was going on in their time, you need to play to some of those characteristics of that time in their lives because they're going to remember that. So getting to a point of having glamorous, fresh, invigorating looking packaging to a 70 or 80-year-old, it's much more about being pared back and simple and not making them feel that they're paying excess to actually get fancy packaging. They're looking for the benefits, they're looking for the things that fit in with their needs, and they're not necessarily looking for the same glamour and glitz that's probably come to be expected for different generations. My recommendation would be, I think there are a lot of big business investing millions in the science and the technology behind a new something, and I think it's time to And often that comes across in the way that things are communicated to the consumer on a piece of packaging. I think it's time to take less of an internal perspective and start focusing on what the real benefits are for the consumer. So consumers ultimately won't be buying the science, they'll be looking at the benefits they're getting out of it. And I think it's just a change in approach.